Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
So, welcome to the next lecture. This is the third lecture of the fourth week, and you remember in the fourth week we started discussing about how we are going to implement a performance management system in an organization, and there we discussed about how we go about rating individuals for better performance, right. And we use various approaches and methods for evaluating the performance. Okay. One of the methods for evaluating performance is that where individual himself is going to evaluate his performance, right. So, this is known as self appraisal, okay, where I am going to evaluate my own performance. Okay. Now, when the question of self appraisal comes, many organizations are very apprehensive about this kind of thing. They think that if individuals are going to evaluate their performance, they will not be able to do justice with this job, because it is the job of their supervisors. Now, many organizations of late have started giving this opportunity to the individuals, so that they evaluate their performance. For example, even in our system, we evaluate our own performance. This is known as self appraisal. So, there is a form, there is a measurement technology that is used, okay. It is automated, but it is we who are going to fill up the form of evaluation, right. So, we are going to evaluate our performance, because it is the individual who knows better about his performance, and that is what we know, that is what we call self appraisal. Now, one of the preconditions of self appraisal that yes, you should know about what you are doing, how well you are doing, and whether you will be able to properly record your performance or not. Okay. So, these are some of the issues that we are going to discuss in this self appraisal, right. So, what is the objective of self appraisal? Why people should be allowed to evaluate their own performance, right. One of the advocates who said that okay, if you are going for self appraisal is that you are giving a opportunity to the employee to comprehensively talk about his activities, his achievements, his failures, his strength and his weaknesses. Now, the question is that if you are allowing an employee to talk about his achievement, his strength, his failures, and he will be able to recapitulate everything, okay, in a very comprehensive way, is it possible or not? Now, many organizations and managers have questioned this, that whether individuals are mature enough, they understand it or not. But if individuals are not mature enough, they are not self aware about it, probably it will not be possible to move for self appraisal, right, because the trend has been to evaluate the performance of others. Like as teachers, we are going to evaluate the performance of the students. As managers, they are going to evaluate the performance of their subordinates. But when you are giving them an opportunity to evaluate their own performance, whether they would be able to do justice with this job or not, right. But the idea is that yes, you give them an opportunity, see what happens, whether they are able to do a good job or not. This helps in identifying their own development needs, because if you tell them that okay, you identify your own strength and your weaknesses, probably the individual himself would be in a better position to tell about what his strengths are and what his weaknesses are, right. And then when he is going to evaluate his performance on those dimensions which you want him to evaluate, identifying the key objectives, right, key accountabilities, objectives and standards, he is going to report it to your supervisor, right. So, it does not mean that you are going to evaluate and keep it with yourself. After evaluation, you are going to communicate it to your reporting officer, right. So, that reporting officer have a look at it and see whether you have done a good job or not, and whether you have been biased or not, whether you have been very lenient, strict, or whether you have made any error or not, right. Sometimes what happens when we evaluate our performance, we try to exaggerate it. Okay. So, we write certain things which is very difficult to prove, right, because there is no record for that. We say that okay, we were engaged in these activities, but this since there is no observation or recording of these kind of activities, it is very difficult to prove whether you have done it or not. Okay. So, there are some of the issues that we will talk about related to self appraisal, but yes, it gives you a very good opportunity to individuals to speak about themselves, relate to their strength, weaknesses, what they have done, what have been their achievements, what kind of activities they have done, what is their performance, right. And this helps them to identify their own development needs. They, based on these strengths and weaknesses which they have identified about themselves, they realize okay, this is what they need to do. So, they identify their areas for improvement, right, and then with the help of the manager they can plan about the development of those areas where they need improvement, right. So, once this is done, they are going to communicate it to the supervisor, okay, and then this process is initiated. What is the process? Okay. So, you know that each organization has a appraisal period, the performance appraisal period. It could be anniversary period or a financial, or it could be the year wise, for example, December to January or April to March, or it could be depending upon the joining of the candidate. Okay. So, whatever it is, once you have decided about the performance period, then the individual who is going to evaluate his performance, he is going to see that what his KPIs are, key performance areas are, what are the objectives that he is supposed to take, right. And then he is going to the individual, the appraisee himself is going to reflect upon his achievements and failures. So, he is going to write the record, right, and is also going to identify the development needs. So, this is the process. You identify the period, right, you identify what is your key result areas, objectives, standards which you were supposed to achieve. You write that one by one, list down all the activities, achievements, performance standards, results that you have achieved, and based on that you see what you have not done, not only achievements, but also failures, and based on this you are going to identify your development needs for the next cycle. So, let us look at the steps that is involved. Okay. Step 1, you know what you know, it means that you need to understand what exactly you know, right, about yourself, right. So, you should not know more details about your job performance than anyone else, because since you are doing the job, you are in a better position to understand what you have done, what is your job performance, even better than your supervisor, because supervisor will come to know about your performance from the observations, but you will be in a better position to understand what you have done as a part of your job, right. So, starting with the financial year or fiscal year or whatever it is, right, you are going to keep a record and note, and also all the written materials which is going to prove as a record of your accomplishments. So, start collecting all the activities, achievements for the entire period starting from the day 1, right. So, you create a folder, maybe soft copy or hard copy if you have a note, okay, and keep a record of all your accomplishments throughout the period. Okay. It could be related to your suggestions, okay, whether you have prepared a memo or if you handled a problem, okay, or whatever you have done. So, list out all those activities, okay, which shows your skills in different activities, right, and you are going to capture it through writing, right. So, you are going to write or provide a list of all activities that you have performed as a part of your job, right. So, next if you are up, and then you see that how your skill have produced results, right. You are also going to write what you have achieved in terms of results, various results that you have obtained, right, that too in writing, okay, and whether you had done it alone or whether you did it a part of the group job or teamwork, whatever it is there, and then what was your contribution. Okay. You also look at your accomplishments, talk to your fellow employees, you might be missing out certain things, you may talk to your boss. So, he might suggest also certain things. So, you for the first stage you should understand basically your accomplishments. So, list them out. So, you should know what you have done, right, at the first stage, and you have kept a record of everything as a part of your job that you have performed in a given job within a given time frame, right. So, this is step number 1. Moving to step number 2. Once you have identified whatever you have done, right, then you get your step together. It means that you collect all that information, right. This is the second step. So, if you look at this step, you can say that you have identified all the critical elements which had led to better performance. You know what are the performance standards against which you are going to be compared, right, because they are going to be basis for your evaluation, right, because you are using them for evaluating yourself, right. Then you start with the position description, right. What I mean to say by position description here is that you write the title of your job which you are doing, right, what is the nature of responsibilities, what is the evaluation period, right. So, this is related to position description. Okay. Who is the reporting officer, that you can also write. Even in self appraisal you also write the name of the reporting appraisal. So, you write your name, your department, the position to which you belong, right, and you also provide a brief summary of your duties and responsibilities as a part of your position, right. Then you look at your prior year's evaluation, what was your achievements in the past, because that will give you an idea whether your this year achievement was good or bad or whatever it is, right, and what was your development plan for the last year, right. See what kind of training you have achieved as a part of the development plan. Okay. So, once you have the data in your file, your personal file related to your performance, okay, so you compile all the data, all the activities, all the products as a part of your which is going to be a part of your results, and any appreciations letters that you have received from your managers. Okay. So, because that you are going to use as a part of your appraisal. So, you collect all of them, then list all such cases, projects, okay, assignments, notes, documents, okay, for the entire period, and then you decide about what would be your appraisal period, whether it is, if it is 6 months, then you collect this data for 6 months, but suppose it is for 1 year, then you are going to collect data for the entire year. The question here is that once you are able to understand what your job is, then you collect all the information together, so that you can put them in writing, right. So, it is very, very important that you are going to list up all such cases which is related to a performance, whether it is related to behavior or performance does not matter, right. So, whether it is related to behavior, you list out all those competencies which you have which are a part of your strength, right, or even if it is not a part of your strength, you weaknesses, you also mention that okay, these are the competencies which could not be developed by you, okay, or which could not help you to achieve the goals and objectives, right. So, everything that you are going to do here is going to be part of your writing, right. So, once you have collected, then you are going to put them into writing, right. This is the show time. Okay. Now, when you are going to do it, okay, not off the record, but you are going to do it in the office hours only. So, you tell your supervisor that okay, you are going to write your appraisal, okay. You are ready for self assessment, because you have collected all the information related to your achievements, behaviors. So, you have all the cases related to you with you, right, and then see that how much time you are going to spend on self assessment, because the idea here is that you are not going to miss out anything, and you are similarly you are not going to write anything which you have not done, right. So, it is very, very important to be correct, right. Then sort your documentation by critical elements, right. What I mean to say here is, since you have identified your key performance areas, and these key performance areas have relative weightage, you know that some of the key performance areas contribute more to your performance, right. Some of the key performance areas contribute less to your performance, right. For example, for a faculty, teaching is the most key sought after area, is the key result areas, which might have a 50% weightage. Research might have a 25% weightage, training and consulting might be having a 25% weightage. So, these are the critical elements which contribute to the performance of a teacher. Now, when you are going to sort out the documents, see that what was your teaching feedback, how well you have taught the courses, not only how many courses you have taught. So, not only the quality of information, but the quantity of information, both are important here, okay, and whether you have been able to achieve the targeted results or not, okay, because it is going to contribute to your performance. Then you are going to present consistently to others in a very clear and understandable manner. So, that when your reporting officer reads it out, he is clear what your achievements are, okay, what kind of competencies you have shown on the job in terms of your behavior, what are your results that you have achieved, where you have demonstrated good strength, capabilities, and what are those areas where you have not been able to demonstrate. What have been your learning experiences, what was the development plan last year, how well you have been able to achieve those development plans or not. So, the documentation has to be done one by one for all these elements in such a way, so that you are able to prioritize them based upon the most effective to least effective, okay, and which is clearly understood. So, if you are going to communicate in very well, so probably he will be able to understand it. So, when you are going to write it, the best idea is that you use tell a story, right, write few sentences. It is like telling a story, okay, this is what we have done, like I did help the management to sort out any issue related to, say, a conflict which was going on in the department, right. So, you have to be very but at the same time you also use certain specific elements out of it, right. So, for each critical element that you have identified, okay, see that how you are going to write it. Okay. So, whether you are going to write a single phrase or you are going to write a number of words there or number of statements, right. So, with this you will be able to come out with your first draft, right. Once you have written everything in a clear, lucid, crystal and understanding way, probably you are ready with a first draft. Okay. What is more important is your writing style. Okay. So, how you are going to write your assessment. In some organizations they already have pre-specified forms, appraisal forms which you have to fill up. So, there is not a problem, but where it is not available and you are supposed to write about it. For example, they identify the competency and then ask you to rate yourself, but if the descriptions are not available, then it is very difficult. So, there you are going to write it, make it simple, clear and brief. So, that when the supervisors are going to read it, they understand what you have done, what you have not done. Okay. Moving next is be a star. Okay. It means that when you are going to write the description, how you do start. Okay. Look at each and every situation you have contributed, what kind of job you have done, a task you have performed, what kind of activities you performed and what was the result. Okay. So, that you can relate the situation, the performance, activities and the performance and the result together, right. For example, here one example I have taken, like on December 31, 2017, a response to several inquiries regarding the interpretation of recent legislation. It is for an IR job. Asked to make a presentation on a small group of taxpayers regarding a new law covering earned income tax credit. For example, you know for the GST we are talking about this income tax credit, which has come into the force. So, being a HR manager, you are going to solve this problem. Okay. So, you have to see that what activities you have taken, what are the situation, what is the task that you have performed, what actions you have taken and what was the result out of it, right. Another example, telephone the contact point to the local preparations associations to look at the requirement of the preparers and design several handouts for my oral presentation. Third, allowed half an hour of 1 hour time for questions answers. Frequently asked my audience if they understood my points before I moved on, that is the result. It means that people have understood what you want to convey, right. Subsequently, he called me and thanked me and asked if I could do something like this again in the future. So, this is in the form of stories. So, you are writing them to make your supervisor explain or understand what activities you have done, right, in what context and what was the outcome or the result of this, right. So, it is to be descriptive, but simple, clear and very brief. Then when you are using phrases for evaluation, how do you go about it, right. Say particularly related to problem solving, okay, or any kind of competencies. One example that is given here is dedicated to job or work. Okay. So, these are 5 phrases that could be used. You have been outstanding, you have been motivated enough, taken the project, okay, being asked, worked overtime whenever it was required. It means that your dedication to work or the job was very high, and that is how you are measuring the level of dedication to the job. you have so you can say exceed expectations. What does it mean? It means you took personal responsibility, okay, to understand and try to see that you are able to do this job. Meet expectations, it means that you were dedicated to the goals, followed all the policies and rules, right, to perform the job. Need improvements, it means that you are not enough dedication for the job, right. It means that probably you are not dedicated enough, so you left work for the night shift, okay, and you were engaged in personal call. It means that you did not devote enough time to perform your job effectively, or finally unacceptable. Okay. It means that you could not attend all the meetings. Okay. The way you created charts and flows were very slow and not very accurate. It means if you look at this particular dimension, which is a behavioral dimension, right, it is a behavioral competency. So, when you are going to evaluate it on this, these are the phrases that could be used, right, but for that you need to understand yourself whether you will be able to do it or not, right. So, this example is given to clear that how you are going to write your evaluations, right. Once you have written it, the next stage is what? Submit a copy, right. Once you have cleared it, then you are going to submit a copy to the reporting supervisor and also keep a copy with yourself. Make sure that you have a soft copy as well as hard copy both, right. Submit it within the given time frame that is available to you, okay, and also note the time and date when you have submitted it, so that supervisor cannot complain it later on. Okay. Suppose if you have done it online, then you send a soft copy to supervisor because he can put into the system, but if you are submitting a hard copy, make sure that you get it received by him, okay, so that it is officially known that you have done your appraisal, right. So, once you have submitted and kept a copy and report it to the supervisor, right, it does not end here. This is the last stage. Then it means now you are ready for the next phase. Okay. So, for the next year again you are going to start the same process, start a file for the next year. Do not postpone it, because suppose you have done some activities in the first few months or 1 month, first month, and you have not recorded, you have not kept a note or diary, then probably that would be missed out. Okay. So, from your past record you can understand how well you have done this job of self recording or self assessment, and then you see that how you can improve upon that. Okay. So, that you are ready for writing your next appraisal at the end of the next cycle, right. So, these are the various steps that could be used in self appraisal. Now, let us look at what is the positive effect of self appraisal. Why companies are advocating, or managers in progressive companies are moving towards self appraisal, okay, and they are doing away the practice, the traditional practice of appraisal by the superiors, right. See, when we are going to evaluate ourselves, right, it increases certain things, that is, it gives more self esteem to us, we think more positively about ourselves, okay. It increases confidence in ourselves, it also provides emotional stability, and we think we are able to control things at the job which we are performing, right. And this leads to what? Certain outcomes, like you have better performance, you are more happy with the job that you are doing, you are also happy with life, because you think that yes, you are doing the job and you are evaluating yourself, right. Okay. So, you think that you have the personality and uniqueness in the sense that you are doing something which is worthwhile, which is contributing to your performance. So, you feel happy, satisfied, and your performance is good. So, if you look at this positive effect, it is very much there, and that is why companies today are moving to more self evaluation, not at the lower level, but at the managerial level you will find that they are going for more self evaluation, but at the lower level of the job you will find that they are not moving for self appraisal, they are still following the practice of evaluation by the superiors, right. Now, moving further, I am just giving you one application form which suggests that how we go about self appraisal, right. So, if you look at this, this is a typical format, you should not take it otherwise, because you need to understand that how self appraisal is done. So, here if you look at this self appraisal format, what does it suggest? It talks about the period, who is going to evaluate himself, and then it has certain columns, right. For example, what is the KPA? So, you need to identify your KPAs for the period, right. Okay. I will give an example to explain it. Then next is, what are the activities that you have done, are the targets that you had to meet, what was your accomplishments. You also identify what helped you to achieve these accomplishments or targets, and what did not help you, and what is your action plan, right. So, it is simple format which I would like to explain you further to see that how it happens, right. For example, when you are going for self appraisal, right. So, you are going to evaluate your performance. Okay. So, you identify your KPAs, right, correct. So, KPAs say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For example, you take the example of a bank manager. So, how do you identify the bank manager's KPAs? Okay. The most important job is to bring business, right, to the bank, right. So, deposit mobilization is one thing. Then customer satisfaction, he need to ensure that revenue and profit is also important for revenue generation or profit. It is also important to see that he is going to administer the branch of a particular branch, I am writing here, administer the people in their branch, right. Suppose you identified, okay, these are the 4 important areas which he should be concerned with, right. So, but this KPIs have to be identified very carefully, because this is related to your key accountabilities. So, now in each of these areas you are going to identify your objectives and also standards. Some of them are going to be measured objectively, some of them are going to be measured. This is going to be an objective measure, this is a subjective measure. You can quantify depending upon the number of increased customers, then loyal customers, how many new customers you have added, right. So, that would give you an idea about this, and another thing that you can use it, because for bank the service quality is very important. So, this is again is going to be a subjective measure, right. Administration, this is going to be a subjective measure. So, you have taken 2 objective measures and 2 subjective measures, right, and for each of these objective measures you have to identify what is the standards against which you are going to evaluate the performance, right. So, these are the KPIs. For example, I am going to take one example, behavioral competencies, that is with the extent to which customers are satisfied with the branch, what is the service quality, what are the parameters of the service quality that you have to identify, because those are the indicators with which you are going to measure service quality, or you also need to identify say customer satisfaction. So, retention is one thing, right, how many customers who have been existing in the bank have been able to retain and not move to other banks, right, new customers that you have added, right, what is the total number of customers that you have, right, what is the loyalty. Okay. So, there could be a number of factors, okay. Commitment among the customers, trust, all these factors are related to what you call satisfaction, could be related with the satisfaction, right. So, you are going to measure this in order to say the extent to which the branch manager have been able to perform his job. Look at the service quality. Now, suppose you are going to measure the service quality. How you are going to measure service quality of a branch manager? Okay. Service quality could be tangible in nature or intangible also, like the kind of ambience, speed of response, delivery of the services, how fast it is done, right. So, all this could be related to what you call service quality. For example, when you go to the bank, you expect better service quality in terms of ambience, at environment, okay, better deliver the services, okay, prompt response from the people from the bank. So, you expect all these kind of things, and based upon the perception of the service quality, you are going to see that whether the customers are going to be satisfied or not. So, this could be related also, customer satisfaction, service quality could be related, right. So, once you have identified the dimension or the key performance areas and the indicators of these are the indicators you will say, right. So, now you are going to collect data, since you are going for self appraisal. So, you are going to appraise, okay, how much business you have created in terms of revenue and profit, right, how much deposit you have mobilized, new deposits you have mobilized. It means that number of increased customers are there or not. Now, with this you are going to see whether on these accounts what is your score. So, you need data on this. So, for similarly you also need data on all these 5 factors that we have talked about, whether it is deposit mobilization, whether it is customer satisfaction, whether it is revenue generation or profit of the bank that has been made by that particular branch, because you are the manager of that particular branch and you are responsible for the profit of that particular unit, right, and what kind of service quality is there, right. Objectively and subjectively you are going to measure this, and based on this data you are going to compile this and you are going to create a profile in the form of what we know as self appraisal. So, when you are going for self appraisal, you collect and collate all the information using the steps that you have used, right, and then you see that the extent to which you have been able to achieve all these objectives against certain standards. We did not talk about standards here, right. So, when we are talking about standards, you are going to talk about numbers, how many customers have been retained, the number of new customers that you have added, how much profit you have been able to make, and whether it is meeting your targets or not. Okay. Suppose you say that okay, you last year you had 100 crore, this year you want to have 120 crore deposit mobilization. So, this become a standard against which your performance you are going to measure, right. So, you identify what you did in order to achieve these objectives, right. So, you list down all those activities, the initiatives that you have taken on your part to meet these objectives and the standards that you have been able to meet. In addition to that, you are also talking about those factors which have contributed to your success and those factors which have not contributed to your success, right. So, you say that you have not been able to increase the revenue because of these factors. You did not make much effort, you were not dedicated, or staff was not cooperative. So, whatever is the reason is, yeah, the economic environment was not good, people have stopped coming to the bank because of the demonetization. So, there could be number of factors which is going to affect your revenue or profit. Some of them may be under your control, some of them may be beyond your control. So, you are going to write both kind of factors, so that you know okay, what are the factors which contributed to your success and which are the factors which are not contributing your success. And finally, you are going to have the development plan. Okay. So, as a part of your development plan, once this self appraisal is done and you have submitted a copy to your senior manager, you are going to again revisit all these KPIs and whether you want to keep them or not, you decide about it. Whether they are going to be part of your KPI, what kind of objectives you are going to set for the next year, what will be standards that you want to meet, right. And because ultimately next year again you are going to be evaluated on the basis that basis only. So, you create a development plan and see that whether it will be achievable for the next year or not, and that is how you will be able to complete your self appraisal and then you submit a copy to the senior manager, your job is done, and then senior manager is going to comment upon that, right. So, you know that there is an open section where they are going to briefly review your performance. Once you have done your job of evaluating yourself, the senior manager of the bank is going to review your performance and send it to your file, which will be used for either developmental purposes or administrative purposes, and that is how self appraisal happens. Okay. So, thank you very much.